Some people say that AI is going to destroy the world. But humanity has always been afraid of new technologies. Let me prove it to you.
Here are 5 inventions that scared the shit out of people.
In the 1890s, a plague swept through the nation: elevator sickness. Elevators had just been invented, and people were complaining about spine irritation, brain fever, and internal organs rising to the throat. This was real. People actually got sick, and people thought that the only way you could counteract elevator sickness was by putting your head against the side of the elevator. Of course, there was no real reason for this. Doctors even ruled out that it was something like motion sickness. It was just plain old hysteria. People were so afraid of this new technology that they made themselves physically ill. Another invention that actually was dangerous was electricity. In 1889, a telegraph lineman was clearing dead wires from a pole in the middle of New York when he touched one that was electrified. He died instantly, but for over half an hour, his corpse roasted above the street. People were bombarded with bad news about electricity right when it came out, and some of it even came from the inventors. Thomas Edison used to hold public demonstrations where he tried to prove that his competitor's technology was super dangerous, and so he would electrocute animals, even an elephant, to death in front of the public. Of course, electricity was mostly safe. It was just that these accidents and sometimes these intentional demonstrations of its danger proved to the public that they should be afraid of this new technology. In the 1890s, the subway was invented, but people were afraid because they thought that going underground brought them closer to the devil. And I know, this is a video about people overreacting to new technology, but this one might actually be true. The early demonstrations of subway technology were incredibly cursed. At the first test of an underground railroad in 1832, the two cars hit each other. In 1900, 54 people died while building the New York City subway. And when building the Boston subway, the diggers accidentally uncovered a Revolutionary War burial ground. They found 910 bodies while digging. So who knows, maybe subways actually are cursed. In the early 1800s, the fastest that anybody could move was on horseback, about 30 miles per hour. But once railroads expanded across the country and the express train became a thing, all of a sudden people could move 60 miles an hour, twice as fast. And people were terrified. Nobody really knew what would happen when you moved a human that fast. There was actually a rumor that women's bodies were somehow not able to withstand above 50 miles an hour. They feared that, I quote, "Our uteruses would fly out of our bodies if they were accelerated to that speed." It turns out this was not true, obviously, but people didn't know that at the time. This was a brand new invention, the first time they had ever gone that fast, and so you can't fault people for being afraid of a brand new thing. Early cars were death traps. In the 1890s, car accidents were almost always fatal. They didn't have electric headlights until 1889 or speedometers until 1901. Safety glass and turn signals wouldn't be invented until the 30s. Modern seatbelts weren't common until the 60s, and airbags didn't even exist commercially until 1973. Most people rode their cars through rural towns, and they caused a lot of damage. They kicked up dust, and that dust would cover people's crops. People were often hitting children or animals as they were going through these unmarked streets. By the 1920s, a historian wrote, rural English hospitals were staggering under the costs of treating auto accident victims. Some of these fears of new technology were warranted, but I don't think that any of us would want to live in a world without cars or electricity or subways. So as you think about AI and other new technologies, just think the answer is not to shut these things down and make sure they never come about. The answer is to keep inventing. Cars needed seatbelts. Electricity needed better insulation. And subways, I guess, needed like exorcisms or something. But the point is, the answer was not to slow down. The answer was to speed up. All of these inventions ended up being great for humanity. All they needed was time. Time for inventors to invent and for humanity to get ready.